Okay, welcome. It's Thursday, 10 August, year of our Lord 2023. We're going to start the 6 o'clock show kind of like we started the show this morning, although we started in Maui. We immediately went to, after talking about the tragedy there, and as I said, all the War Room posse in Maui. We've had some contacts throughout the day. We want to make sure more of you check in to make sure everything's okay. We went to Ukraine. Ben Harnwell and Oscar Lou Ramirez are over there, and I said that later in the day we were going to get Darren Beatty, or we try to get Darren in the morning show, and Ben Harnwell. Darren is actually going to try to join us tomorrow. We just had some scheduling problems. And the reason is, and this cuts to the heart of so many issues, massive expose last night over at The Intercept that got some what is called ciphers or cables that went from the State Department to other sources and broke a massive story about Imran Khan in Pakistan and the Biden regime. I want to bring in Ben Harnwell in Rome. Ben, when you sent that to me in the wee hours of the morning, I said, this is very big. You go, I think I said it's huge. You said it's bigger than huge. Because this gets to the diabolical phoniness of this regime and what they're really trying to accomplish. I want you to take our audience through, because it's the first time I had to really deal with it. Walk us through what's going on. You know, we had Darren Beatty interviewed Imran Khan. I think it was the last or next to last foreign journalist to interview him a couple of weeks ago. And then on the very phony charges, kind of the same thing that came up is coming up with President Trump. They found him guilty on some trumped-up charges. They immediately sent the army to arrest him. He's now in a 6x9 jail, and his crime is being a populist. And Imran Khan is far from perfect. But when you hear the story that Ben Harnwell's about to walk you through, all of a sudden it will all become clear about exactly what's going on here. And while this Ukraine situation, there are a lot of secrets about this Ukraine situation that have to be exposed. Ben Harnwell from Rome, walk us through what happened and what has the Biden regime been up to?
Good evening, Steve. It's an astonishing story, and I take my hat off to the Intercept for putting this together, doing the groundwork, the hard slog of the actual research. By the way, folks, I give about €25 a year to the Intercept. It's one of I check hundreds and hundreds of sources every week in order to bring you guys the best international analysis I can. Most of that coverage is free. We pay for some of it. The Intercept I actually pay for out of my own pocket. I think they're not on our side. They're not nationalists. They're not populists by any stretch. But they're doing things that no one else will touch. And you would have thought this story, for example, would be all over the mainstream media if they were actually interested in conveying to you the truth. It's not. This is why I think the Intercept has done an exceptional job. So here's the story. Basically, in March last year, 1 month after Russia invaded Ukraine, by the way, this is important, when that invasion took place, the day that took place, 24th of February 2022, Imran Khan, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, was flying over to Moscow for meetings. A month after that took place, Donald Lu, who works for the State Department, and some of his colleagues called in Moscow's ambassador to the United States for a stripping down, basically, in which that meeting, this is according to the secret cable, which the Intercept has now got its hands on. In that meeting, Donald Lu told the Pakistani ambassador that there was talk of a no-confidence motion in the works against Imran Khan being pushed fundamentally by the military, and that America would look very, very benevolently. They said everything will change if all will be forgiven. Is the precise words. All will be forgiven if that no confidence motion goes through. If it doesn't go through, Pakistan can look forward to be increasingly isolated. Steve, you mentioned in your introduction that his crime, Imran Khan's crime, is being a populist. That's absolutely true. In this context, the thing that really got up the US State Department's goat is what that he was pursuing, Pakistan was pursuing under Imran Khan's leadership, and I quote, Steve, an aggressively neutral policy stance with regards to Ukraine. That is precisely what this is about. Now, we know, because we've covered this quite a bit, that President Zelensky has a couple of months ago postponed the parliamentary elections in the autumn and the presidential elections next spring. Before that, you could just about superficially, publicly, the West could do this, could make an argument that this was fundamentally about preserving democracy and the rule of law in a small country with a larger neighbour. When you pull back the curtain, Steve, and find what the United States was doing in Pakistan, even that threadbare justification dissolves into the cant that it is. Because what the United States has done, what it has succeeded in doing, is removing a democratically elected prime minister, and as you were saying, have been thrown into jail simply because he was pursuing an aggressively neutral response with regards to Ukraine, as was, in fact, as Imran himself pointed out, as did his ambassador, as did India. Both of these countries abstained in the vote, if you remember, in the United Nations condemning Russia's invasion. Both of these nations abstained. India, because of the wider China situation, has been treated with kid gloves. Pakistan has suffered what is, to all intents and purposes, regime change. Now, all other things being equal, one could sort of understand what the State Department is doing here, because Imran Khan, in the grander picture, was very much a supporter of, or had become a supporter of the Islamic sphere of politics in Pakistan. He came to office via support of the military. Then he left that support. Tried to find his own power base, his own popular power base with the people, and tacked a very hard line, sort of a Sharia law friendly line. The military in Pakistan, as it is to some extent also in Turkey, is a very secularizing force. So ordinarily one could understand what the greatest strategy might be on behalf of the United States there. However, in the application of this, it has nothing to do with that, nothing to do with the war of terror, has nothing to do with tampering down the burgeoning Islamic presence in Pakistan. This all has everything to do with Imran Khan just wanting, this is what they said, this is what the Pakistanis said, this is what he said, this is what his ambassador said. He said, we have friends with China, we have friends with Russia, we're friends with the United States. We don't seek to have any sort of personal interests here. We just want to maintain an open policy of friendship with all nations. That wasn't good enough for the State Department. And 1 month after that meeting took place, there was this no confidence vote, which Imran Khan lost, and then out of power, this cipher, this secret cable that Imran Khan himself was waving about publicly disappeared. According to the Intercept article, it assumed a mythical status. In various people two journalists who were friends with collaborators with Imran Khan, who were trying to chase this down. One of them was shot dead. The other one was arrested at the airport and has not been heard from since. So there are very few people left beyond Imran Khan himself who would be able to say what was in this cable. And now, thanks to the Intercept's sterling journalistic work, they've published the text of this along with their article. The link to this article I will put, as always, in the video description that accompanies this segment on Rumble. But it's very interesting, Steve, pulling back the curtain just to see how absolutely desperate the United States was to bully other nations into supporting its policy with regards to Ukraine, even going as far as regime change.
Yeah. No. There's two, because remember, democracy is everything for them. That's why we're in Ukraine. That's why we've shipped over $100 billion over there to democracy. The thing about democracy, sometimes you have to accept when people vote against what you support. There's two situations here. Back in 2014 that started this entire thing. The Maidan revolution. I'm not saying that the guy that was in charge and had Zelensky's job was a good guy. He wasn't a good guy. He was a puppet of Putin, okay, or close association with Putin. But he was elected in an election that kind of passed enough muster that he took office. But he was removed when Victoria Nuland and the other operatives over there at the globalist State Department and Defense Department and the national security apparatus wanted him removed. This is a second situation. Here's the thing, I think, and I think you're going to start to see now that they picked the scab on this. When, and I was put in charge in that first year in the administration of getting us out of Afghanistan, and we had a plan to do it. And that was kind of overruled, and they were able to convince President Trump, let's continue on and try this thing, a path. But his inner circle that was most America first said, we got to get out of this mess, and the military has no solution for this, and there's a way that we can get out and still keep enough people there to kill the terrorists. But the big problem in Afghanistan has always been Pakistan. And the big problem in Pakistan is we've been shoveling tens of billions of dollars into Pakistan since the beginning, since 9/11. Why? Oh, that was going to be the great ally that was going to help us out. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. This is where all the terrorists would go to the Pashtun areas in Pakistan and hide out, because remember that tribal thing, the line of demarcation between Afghanistan and Pakistan is just a line on a map. It's not the way the region works. We've been shoveling tens of billions of dollars over there, essentially in perpetuity for decades and decades and decades. And ISI, the intelligence services, and the military, and we don't really know in what regard who has a dominant role, but they kind of run the deal. And this very much looks like administrative state to administrative state. Hey, we'll just get rid of the democratically elected government. This shows you, I think, puts in high relief the whole phoniness. Remember, the whole pitch of the Biden regime is you're in Ukraine. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben. And this is what's being sold in the capitals of Europe, I think, to the people. You're in Ukraine because you're defending democracy. And here we see, hey, if you're not with the program, we'll deal with the military and ISI that really run the country to throw out the kind of false makeup we have on the front of it. Just get rid of it and have people on our team. Doesn't this show the total hypocrisy of our policy in Ukraine, sir?
It certainly does, Stephen. You're very right to roll back the time a little bit and have a look at the past of the US's involvement with Pakistan. You'll remember when the head of the military, Pervez Musharraf, his plane was about to be. They blocked the government had blocked the airports. They wouldn't let his plane land in order to effectively assassinate him. This was when the government there in Pakistan was run by Nawaz Sharif, right? Who's basically responsible, I think, 15 years on for the sorry state that Pakistan is in now. And what that forced the army to do is the army then went in, took control of the airports, so that its effective commander was able to land his plane. That set in motion a military coup that overthrew, when Musharraf became prime minister, overthrew the very corrupt Nawaz Sharif regime. And what did the United States do? Now, this guy, Musharraf, was an ally of the United States on the war of terror. I mentioned before how the military was traditionally, like in Turkey, a very secularizing force. What did the United States do? In the end, they pulled the rug on Musharraf on the basis of what? That he was a military dictator. So, when you're talking about the State Department's run of hypocrisy, that is absolutely correct, because then it was convenient to pull the rug on what was actually quite a modernizing and uncorrupt regime for Pakistan. The State Department pulled the rug on that, brought back Nawaz Sharif, who was, as I say, just hand over fist in terms of grifting, set in motion the escalating Islamic fabric of Pakistan, which the military to some extent had kept in check. And they overthrew this guy on the basis that the military ought to be removed from civilian life. Now, what the State Department has done the very opposite of that. They've taken down, for now, a civilian leadership who had tried to leave the grasp of the military and form his own civilian basis, his leadership power base with the people rather than the military. The military that, realizing that he was escaping from their control, that they really wanted him gone. And the State Department comes in and supports effectively the military rather than the civilian government. And this time the difference is not the war on terror or ideals of democracy. It is the factor that defines everything on the world stage for America right now. It's Ukraine. Because, of course, why? Because Biden is so politically and personally invested now in this war that he's thrown all of the resources of the United States military, all of its munitions that it had. He said somewhat recklessly that the reason they were giving these cluster bombs that are illegal in like 120 countries to Ukraine was they didn't have any ordinary munitions left. They'd run out. So Biden has gone in so hard on Ukraine. He's brought America to this situation with the sanctions policy and then the punitive bullying that Jake Sullivan was doing on other countries. It's given a second wind to the BRICS momentum. So they're going to form a gold-backed currency that will, for them, hopefully take down the dollar. All of this is Biden's direct personal impetus. And again, it shows, as you said, to use your word in your introduction.
Yeah,
it's hypocrisy.
By the way, that's what's hypocrisy. We have to assume is in politics. But it's deeper and more dangerous for the American people than this. You just did a great litany of everything, including the BRICS situation, and we're going to get to that in a moment with the Birch Goal and how you can get more information about this. Because you're right, this is one of the initiatives driving that, and also the massive deficits, part of which is this funding to $100 billion a year plus of Ukraine. But to the nub of it, they're so far invested. Victoria Nuland and them are so far invested. Ben Harnwell will tell you, people on the streets of Kiev right now are saying, Biden's weak. They're very nervous where they're hearing that the CNN poll that the United States is the American people are now 55-45 and Republicans are 79% against sending one more penny. Zelensky, and I think the Washington Post has finally picked it up. There's more coverage today, what the war room's been telling you, that everything you've been hearing about the spring offensive, all the big hype, all the big buildup, ain't happening. And one of the reasons that the spring offensive has stopped, essentially, or most of it stopped along that 600-mile front, is that local commanders in the field just don't want to send their kids into the killing field anymore because they're being chopped up. I mean, this is brutal, and it's kind of one-sided right now. Ben, Zelensky's regime has got to be very nervous. They understand if the money gets cut off from the United States, they're going to get overthrown by the Ukrainian people. But they've got to be quite concerned now about their own removal by, because Biden and these guys, once they're done with you, they're done with you. Where do you think we stand? And particularly, and I don't know if it's getting into the papers of Europe, but right now in the United States, and I think it's because of the briefing of the Democratic congressman that went over there, where they had to these guys were asking tough questions because the Democratic Party is so invested in this. And they're the first ones that leaked it that said, hey, we started getting real military presentations, and this thing's not going well. Ben Harnwell.
Steve, I'm glad you mentioned that article in the CIA's daily morning bulletin, otherwise known as the Washington Post. This has the headline, Slow counteroffensive darkens mood in Ukraine. I'll put that link along with all of the others for the posse to get hold of that and read that article. But it's exactly as you say, this is mood music now. There's more than mood music. This is the turning on a dime, pivoting now of being all in terms of the propaganda to basically saying this counteroffensive is dead in the water and is not going forward. And if that is the case, if this counteroffensive doesn't go forward, then as you're saying, all the other momentum, if one can call it that, in support of Ukraine, is going to radically change the dynamic of this war. Not, as you say, not only in Ukraine, but also in the West. That's financing it. To that point, there is continued talk now about how the Biden regime is going to get this extra $10 or $12 billion. It hasn't decided how much it wants yet in order to send through to Ukraine. And it also adding on the ride, also perhaps Taiwan as well. This is going to be very, very, over the next few months, it's going to be very, very interesting to see if the administration can get this money. There's talk about, in the autumn, about some continuing resolution. I don't know. But as you'll see, for the reason that you just said, getting more money now, this is now lifeblood for Ukraine. They would almost certainly go to the negotiating table at this point if the money were to stop. And of course, Biden can't afford that. Having the American people, the Ukrainian people, the rest of the Western allies having all sacrificed so much, Biden would obviously be, and I know you say it's moot because he's not going to be the candidate next November, but until he announces that is the dynamic. So the progress of this, and I think there's no doubt that the Senate will acquiesce. The issue is whether there'll be enough support in the House to give another $12 billion to Ukraine. That I think is where all eyes
going to be a fight.
Will turn.
This is going to be a massive fight. Ben, and by the way, I'm going to give you the other side of that. When they're pushing $12 billion, and the Washington Post says this today, the amount they're sending to Taiwan, which is absolutely vital to the economic well-being of the United States, I think $346 million. I'm not making this up. You're going to get Thayer's going to be no. It's just. But that's how they're going to try to justify. Well, we got Taiwan dollars in there too. You can't turn this down. We got Taiwan money. Ben, how do people get you? Your coverage has been amazing on this as usual. How do they get to you?
Thank you so much, Steve. Warroom.org. Go to the War Room channel on Rumble, or come to me directly on Getter. Simply my surname, Harnwell, at Harnwell, and you'll find my analysis and all the links to the articles posted there. Thanks so much, Steve. God bless.
Perfect. Okay, now we're going to pivot. We're going to connect Taiwan, the Chinese economy, and I think if we can do it, pull together some connections, maybe even to the DeSantis campaign and what's happening in this phony primary that the Murdochs are running. Let me go to Dr. Bradley Thayer. Dr. Thayer, you just heard the report on Ukraine. And the mood music, the Washington Post has got this story today. Hey, the lack of military advancement has got Kiev and Washington in a very dark mood because Biden's got to figure out how to push this $12 billion package through a house that's a MAGA house right now. And the Republican Party doesn't want to hear any more about it. And I can tell you, even in Iowa, I think the polling's like 70% of the people said, no, we've had enough of this. It's one of the reasons Nikki Haley and these people fail to get traction. In that package, I think they're talking about $300 million for Taiwan. You've got a magnificent article up, I think, on the Messenger. You break down into like 4 component pieces why Taiwan's absolutely essential. The defense of Taiwan's essential to the well-being of the United States of America. We got a couple of minutes on this side. I'm going to hold you over. Go ahead and start. Walk me through your theory of the case.
Oh, sure, Steve, and thanks for having me on. Taiwan is essential for American security for 4 major reasons. One, and first, as you noted, the economic importance of it. Taiwan is a burgeoning economy, but it's also a chip-making superpower. And so our economy, the U.S. economy, as well as our major allies, heavily depends on Taiwanese chip production. Second, geopolitically, Taiwan occupies critical geopolitical space for defensive operations as well as offensive operations, should it come to it, against China, and including intelligence operations, right? It's an island off of the shore, kind of an unsinkable aircraft carrier off of the PRC's shore. And so it occupies critical real estate for bottling up the People's Liberation Army Navy and for serving as a key outpost for the United States and its allies, should it so choose. Thirdly, political warfare. Taiwan shows what China might have been and someday might again be, and that is a vibrant democracy. Taiwan is a wonderful illustration of how the Chinese people can forge democratic government and live under democratic values and principles without the tyranny of the Chinese Communist Party. And then fourth, Taiwan is absolutely essential for the establishment of American credibility in the region. The Japanese, Australians are looking to the Filipinos are looking to the United States for leadership to balance against China. And sadly, they're not seeing it from the Biden administration. Taiwan is a critical...
Just hang on for 1 second. I want to get into more of this. By the way, it's up on a site called The Messenger. It's one of the ones I recommend you go check out every day. It's got a lot of great news coverage. It's got it's not MAGA, but it's not too shabby. Go check it out. Dr. Thayer is going to join us on the other side. By the way, breaking news, they're adding $13 billion of disaster relief to the $12 billion in Ukraine. No games here. Back in a moment.
Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. As we said, there's breaking news. There's now been a release or a leak about what this package is going to be. And I just said before the break, it's an old DC game. It's the $12 billion for Ukraine. Think about that for a second. I'm not making this up. We've given, $150 billion? Just to put it in perspective, when we're back and you're going to have all this big fight over the appropriations, and McCarthy will say, and all those people that voted for the $15 trillion, the 6.8 and the 6.8 for 2 years and the $4 to $5 trillion deficit. That crowd. Remember what their defense was. Whoa, hold on, hang on, Steve, hang on, Bannon, hang on, Warren, blah, 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 calm down. We got the appropriations process. It's all crap because they've got kind of the template. And even those guys are talking about it like a 22 number. The federal government's expansion has expanded. The Leviathan expanded 40% from 2019, the golden year of the Trump administration, 40%. So we're not even going back to the pre-2019 number. But consistently we said, these are all games. The $100 billion, the difference, the bid and the ask, quite frankly, of all this appropriation thing, I'll just cut to it. When you really look at what they're talking about and not what the smoke, we're going to do this, we're going to cut all these free. What they're really talking about is $100 billion difference. That's the bid and the ask, the $100 billion. $100 billion on a $6.8 trillion total budget, of which, and you heard it here first, and I know it gets repetitious, but we got to do it because we got to burn it into the opposition's brain. We told you it was going to be $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion deficit, that we have to print money to finance. They're not in Durban because they want to be in Durban, South Africa. Okay, in August. They're in Durban for a reason. That we've destroyed the purchasing power of the United States, the fiat currency that is the U.S. dollar. Go to birchgold/Bannon. Make sure you get the précis so you get to know the nomenclature and the structure of what we're talking about. This thing in Durban, even if they don't come up with a perfect currency as an alternative, the drive is de-dollarization. The reason is they know our elites are irresponsible. And they also know, let's embrace this, that MAGA ain't got them cornered yet. We got what we got, and we're doing a good job, but it's not perfect, that $100 billion. This is why, up in your frickin' face, where all that BS they told us about the spring offensive and the tanks and the Bradley fighting vehicles and the Leopard tanks with the iron crosses on the side and all the people freaking out, all of that. The only thing they've accomplished in Ukraine is killing more brave, virtuous, courageous Ukrainian young men and civilians. That's what they've accomplished. And so in the field, with these horrific casualties, they're starting to see that horrific casualties. They're saying, oh, no more, no more. In that $12 billion, here's what they've done. They've slapped $13 billion of disaster relief, like for Maui, like for the Western Forest fires, like for the flood in Vermont, other things that have these natural occurrences. Oh yeah, it's climate change. These natural things that happen with the turning of the earth. They've slapped that together. So now if you don't vote for the 12 billion, if you vote against it, the 13 billion, the people, the dead of Maui are not going to get buried. The town's not going to be rebuilt. But in all of that, as Dr. Bradley Thayer has broken down in this really succinct yet quite smart piece in the Messenger, which is his new news site that's been created, he walks you through the 4 reasons. Tucked in there, $346 million for Taiwan, which is absolutely an essential part of the American economy that we just can't wish away and say, oh, we're just going to go build these advanced chip factories in Phoenix. You're just not going to wave a wand. That's just not going to happen. Oh, by the way, it's against the existential threat to our nation, the Chinese Communist Party. Dr. Thayer. 12 billion, and this is on top of 100 and some billion we've given already. 12 billion versus 346. Does that show the geopolitical? Boy, if I ever want to think that Joe Biden might be compromised by the Chinese Communist Party, would this be a pretty good indication that I'm going to throw a tip to Taiwan while I'm going to pay billions more in tribute to the Zelensky junta in Ukraine, sir?
It's outrageous, Steve. Taiwan is a strategic interest of the United States. Xi Jinping is going to attack Taiwan. This is the time, today, this is the time to do everything we can to deter that attack. That means flowing resources to Taiwan, not to Ukraine, but to Taiwan, and treating Taiwan the way we treated the Central Front of NATO during the Cold War on the inter-German border between West Germany and Czechoslovakia. It was everything. That was the pivot. That's where the war was going to come, and that's where deterrence had to stand. This is what we need to do now. Taiwan has to become the Central Front. You're seeing Xi Jinping's aggression against the Philippines, where he's attempting to evict the Filipinos from their territory on 2nd Thomas Shoal. You see his designs on Japan, and you see his designs on us, right, fundamentally. So this is the Central Front. This is a Munich moment for the United States, and the window is rapidly closing where we could take measures to deter the attack. Once the attack comes, we're in war fighting, right? That's where we're fighting really World War III against the Chinese Communist Party. We want to deter that, and now is the time to do it.
Let me. Bradley Thayer, you need to listen to Thayer and Frank Gaffney and the people of the Committee on the Present Danger, because everything they've been saying is true, and we know this. And now Biden, these guys, because we expose what they're doing at Sequoia Capital and all of it, and now Axios has got a big story out this morning. I don't have time to go through it today. Maybe we will do it tomorrow. That says, hey, by the way, it's just not the capital. It's the expertise in technology. What have we said from day one? Let me pick some random things. Oh, quantum computing, advanced chip design, and artificial intelligence. Mark my words. I was born in a Navy town, Ocean View, Virginia, outside the greatest naval base in mankind's history, the Norfolk Navy base, the NOB, the Naval Operating Base at Norfolk. What Bradley Thayer is telling you, if you think the United States people have been rattled by Afghanistan, the retreat there, or what this disaster in Iraq, or what happened in Vietnam, or what's happening on the southern border, or what's happening to this transgender ideology, let me tell you what you're not prepared for. And that is a carrier battle group at the bottom of the Straits of Taiwan. And mark my word, if this is not dealt with now, if we do not deal with this now, understand this. In the defense of Taiwan, we are gambling 10 to 12,000 young men and women, sailors, in a carrier, cruisers, destroyers, a ballistic missile, fast attack submarines, the whole caboodle right there. A entire carrier battle group that Xi and the Chinese are figuring out every day how they're going to take that out and send it to the bottom of the Straits of Taiwan. And that will happen unless we stop this madness in Ukraine and shift every piece of available resources to Taiwan. If James Comer, I'm going to play Comer here in a second. In fact, let's get this up. If Comer and these guys, they say, well, what's the motivation? What did he do? I'll tell you what he did. He was in charge. Joe Biden was put in charge of the pivot to Asia under President Obama. Remember, Obama ran as a populist anti-war Democrat. That's how he beat Hillary Clinton. And the establishment said, hey, we're going to need somebody to babysit this guy because he might actually believe what he says. And who they put there? They selected Joe Biden because of his 30 years of mismanaging and making bad decisions on the Senate Foreign Relations. He was put in charge by the Obama administration for the pivot to Asia. At a CENTCOM, we understand the rising power of China. We got to do it. You know what he accomplished? Besides setting up Hunter and all these business deals and all the flights he took on Air Force Two and all the secret meetings that Joe Biden said had 27 hours with Xi, had more than anybody. You know what the United States accomplished in their entire thing when we took over the watch, when we relieved the watch in January 2025, in that total transition. You know what they had done? I'm sitting there, I said, fill up the room. I want to see every document, every proposal, every email, every meeting. I want to see the pivot to Asia. I know it's got to be something magnificent. Let me see. They took 1 Marine brigade and 4 deployed it to Darwin, Australia. That's it. Full stop. The United States Navy couldn't even go through the South China Sea and the Straits of Taiwan anymore like a Navy should. Radar up, guns up. To show you that we're actually a fighting unit. We had to go through in safe navigation, like little teeny sheep. That's Joe Biden. That's Joe Biden selling out his country. And write this down. When those 10 to 12,000 sailors at the bottom of the Straits of Taiwan, the blood is on the hands of Joe Biden, Hunter, and the entire crime family, and every Democrat that's done this, and every penny we sent to Ukraine. Every penny. Let's go ahead and play Comer's. Let's hear Comer this morning.
Going to subpoena Hunter Biden.
Yeah, this is always going to end with the Bidens coming in front of the committee. We are going to subpoena the family. I mean, we're putting the case together to win in court. Obviously, with all the opposition and obstruction we're getting from the Biden attorneys now, we know that this is going to end up in court when we subpoena the Biden. So we're putting together a case, and I think we've done that very well. We've shown the bank records. If I had subpoenaed Joe and Hunter Biden the first day I became chairman of the committee, it would have been tied up in court, and the judge would have eventually thrown it out, because at that time the narrative was, well, they never took any money while he was vice president. He never had any communication with his business associates, and the money never came from China. We've had to go every step of the way and prove the media narrative was wrong, and the vice president and the current president lied. We have caught Joe Biden in so many lies, I can't even count the number of lies now. So we have put together a case that I think would stand up in any court of law in America, and we hope to hear from the Biden soon. But I wish the media would ask the president, what exactly did your family do to receive this $21 million that the House Oversight Committee has proven? He just continues to say, well, that's a lie. That's not true. We have their bank records, Maria.
Right.
Bank records don't lie.
Congressman, when are you expecting to subpoena Joe and Hunter Biden?
Well, we want to talk to about 3 or 4 more associates first. We've been communicating with a couple of them. We're trying to bring them in just like we did Devin Archer for a transcribed interview. If they don't come in voluntarily, then they'll be subpoenaed. So this is taking a lot longer. But if you look at how the special counsel, Durham or other special counsels conducted investigations, I think our committee is going a whole lot faster than any other congressional committee in history and any other special counsel.
Yeah.
This is a complicated case, and we're being obstructed every step of the way by the Department of Justice, by the FBI, by the Secret Service, by the IRS, and by the Biden family attorneys.
Wow.
But that's not stopping us. We continue to produce evidence about every 2 weeks.
Well, we would not.
I got Dave Brat up. Let me go to Bradley Thayer. I'm going to go right to Dave Brat in a second. Thayer, how humiliating is that right there, sir?
It's outrageous. This is far more important than Joe Biden. This is American security, and this is World War III that we're discussing. And the Biden administration refuses to take Taiwanese security and the demands that it requires and the risks that we're going to have to incur. They simply dismiss it. Instead, as they modify the Duchess of Windsor, she said you could never be too rich or too thin, right? Or you could never give too much to Ukraine, the Biden administration would add. And that is, we're going to rue the day, and we're going to rue it very soon, because Xi Jinping is determined to conduct this invasion. And we have, again, only a narrow window to have any attempt to deter the attack. And deterrent is far better than war fighting, right? It's far better than going to war, having that attack and engaging in, as
Dr.
you described, Steve.
Yeah. Hang on for 1 second. Let me get Brat in here for a minute. Brat, you've got a reason. Tell me about your assessment. She, besides wanting it and wanting unification, has got to change the narrative in China. Walk me through that, Dave, Brat.
Yeah, well, China is imploding, as Thayer has reported on as well. In many ways, they are experiencing a bubble. Most disastrous today, they have 20% of their young males unemployed. And so they've got a problem. They were trying to move toward a consumption economy from a government coerced investment strategy, right? They invested 40% of their people's GDP. They just took it from the people and invested it in skyscrapers, bullet trains, etc. Well, all those easy investments are now over. So she's in a real problem. He's got a demographic problem. That's probably the number one thing that kicks in 5 to 10 years. And most analysts say they're in deep trouble. So as a result of all this, he's turned inward. He went to complete Marxist-Leninist terminology in his last CCP meetings. And he's dead serious on that, right? They got rid of all the Chinese lingo, all the peace and harmony. He went to a war footing. And the United States, we don't see any reporting or news on this major turn of our chief competitor that's declared they're at war against us. And so I've been listening in, and now is the time. But we'll see whether the House Foreign Services Committee, the Senate pays any attention and takes the tough steps they have to.
But, Dave, we got to bounce, but I got a question I got to ask you because you're up on the Hill. This battle over this supplemental for Ukraine and focusing the nation that the resources we spend this have to be shifted immediately to Taiwan, or we're going to bring on a shooting war. How big a deal is that going to be when they get back in September?
I don't think it'll be as big of a deal. They're going to be dealing with appropriations and all the politics there, and we've already caved on all of that. And the idea that they're going to stand up to the defense folks, I haven't seen any evidence of that. But the American people, this show, the folks that watch this show are really putting in Herculean efforts, and they're contacting the congressmen and women and the senators, and that could play the difference. So everyone here needs to communicate. We're sick of sending our money over for the killing grounds that kill young Christian men, Ukrainians. We're fed up with it. It's got to end now. We need to start aiming our resources and our analysis and our news pieces, especially to educate the American people on what China's up to. And there's all sorts of reports, tens of millions of dollars now from the CCP and our K-12 educational system. And, and Rubio's calling for, Justice Department to weigh in on all that. So that's promising.
Perfect. Dave, Brat, where do people go to get all your analysis? I know you're putting up stuff all the time on the economic side. Where do they go?
Yep, Brat Economics on Getter. The inflation piece today is not a huge story, but over a year it's been going down, and all of a sudden it pulled a little U-turn. So we're going to wait to see what the wage inflation looks like, and that'll be the upcoming story probably.
The vice provost over at Liberty. Thank you very much, Dave. I know you're on watch on this thing. Dr. Thayer, where do people go to get this article at the Messenger, your other writing, sir?
centerforsecuritypolicy.org or on Truth and Getter at Bradley Fair, Steve. And Thanks for calling attention to this issue. We're heading to war, and Xi's putting the big pieces in place right now. We're seeing it right before our eyes, and this is happening.
We've changed the American people's thinking on Ukraine. We've changed it on the CCP, and we're going to drive this home. All resources must be shifted out of Ukraine, immediately go to Taiwan. Okay, we're going to end with a tribute, a special tribute. We've got Jerry Garcia died, very close, a friend of Robbie Robinson. He died within a week, 28 years ago, I think it was, of Robbie Robinson just passing away. So we're going to do The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. This is the Jerry Garcia rendition, the cover of Robbie Robinson's great song. We're going to leave you. We'll be back here at 10 a.m. live tomorrow morning.
Like my brother before me, I took a rebel stand.